Hi, I'm Marie Caminaris and I have another fun project I'd like to share with you. Today I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful watercolor collage of a winter wonderland scene. Before we begin, I'd like to just explain to you some of the things that we'll be using. So I have here a little watercolor set. This is a travel watercolor set, but you can use any watercolor set that you have at home. I'm primarily going to be using blues and greens and a little bit of burnt sienna. So if you have those colors at home, that would be great too. I also have some watercolor paper. This is about a 5x7 sheet. And then I have a smaller sheet right here, which is about half that size. I have a little tray to mix my watercolors in, some watercolor brushes, a number 8, a number 0, and a flat brush. Some glue, just any kind of glue, a little bit of glitter, and some little adhesive dots. You also want to have some paper towels on hand and a container of water to wash your brushes out with. So the first thing I did was take this 5x7 paper and I taped it onto this board here, because the first technique we're going to be doing is a wet on wet. We're going to be wetting about 2/3 of this paper and we're going to be applying the color on it. So being the paper is going to be wet, we don't want it to buckle. For the next part of the project with the little paper, we're going to be doing a wet on dry technique, and so it's not as important to tape it, but if you can tape the first paper down, do so. Okay, I'll wait. I'm going to try and demonstrate this holding it up so you can see. I have my larger brush, any kind of brush will do, but I have my larger flat brush, and I have my water, so I'm going to just do a very simple paint job right on the paper with the water. And I don't know if you can see, like you can probably see a sheen starting to take place on the paper. So I'm going to continue wetting down the paper, and I'll come back and show you how to apply the color. I have a really nice sheen going on here with the paper, and I've already just mixed a little bit of blue, ultramarine blue watercolor with a little water. I'm going to apply it on the top here, and you can watch and see how it just runs down. I'm going to let it do its thing. It's going to create its own sky. I'm going to mix into that just a little bit of purple on the top. Get a little bit of variation of color and just see how nicely they work and blend with each other. Here we go. Now this is run down just about enough to make a nice background of a blue and a little bit of darker blue colors. I put a little bit of green watercolor paint on my flat brush. I'm still using the flat brush. I'm going to just lay in like my horizontal line for my ground, and I'm going to start to show you how to put in the trees. I just did a simple line across for the horizontal line. This will be our ground. Now I'll show you it's very simple to put in the trees. I'll show you one right here. I'm just going to put a little line, and then I'm going to just work little triangles coming out of it. Very, very loosely, all the way down to our ground. Let's put one over here, very loose, just coming out. And we're going to be layering and going over this as it dries. Let's let this dry, and we'll come back and we'll work on it some more. Okay, here's my next step to show you with a very fine brush. This is a number 0. I have more watercolor paint on this brush, and I'm going to redefine and just a little closer with the brush strokes on the trees to make it a little bit more definite. So what I mean by that is exactly this. Just make a little line coming down. Okay, there's our ground. Now from that line, just come out. And you don't have to come out exactly on the same spot, on the same side. Nature's not like that, so you can vary it. Okay, so what I've done here, I'm going to also do on this side here. I've got a little bit more water and more paint on my brush, just making a line going down and just coming out from that line in different directions to make another tree. I think I'm going to put in one more tree here and doing it the same way. And the paper's still kind of wet, so put a line down here, and I'm just coming out with my fine number 0 brush. And I think we have our trees in place. Let's let this dry and come back and take a look at it and see if it needs any more work. So in some small areas, I just went over things one more time with the green watercolor. This is a sap green, and I'm going to let this dry and we'll move on to the other paper with the wet on dry technique. Here's my smaller piece of paper. I'm just going to fold it in half lengthwise. If you want to, you can take a pencil and just draw like a half a tree shape on it, or you can just use your scissors to cut it out, and then we're going to open it up. I took my scissor and I made these zigzag lines on the paper, and now when I open it up, I have a little tree. Now we'll learn how to do a wet on dry technique. What you can also do is take a pencil and draw little indications of where you might want to put the branches. And what I also did was make a little wavy line here where there would be branches on the bottom and cut that out so it's not just flat. So I'll wait while you do that, and then I'll show you how to do the wet on dry. I mixed a stronger green color so you can really see this very well. And I'm going to show you how to do the wet on dry. I've got a dry piece of paper and some watercolor paint here, and I'm just going right underneath the lines that I made with the watercolor paint, and that's going to be my snow-covered branches. And we're going to go over this a few times so that more of the tree will show, and the white part is going to be our snow-covered branch. So as you can see, we're just going here, outlining everything, and I'm going to continue down the tree with this technique, and we're going to do a second layer also when that's done. I did the rest of the tree, and now I'm going to go back. I'm actually using a little bit of blue so you can see this really well. I'm just going to tap in with my brush. So nothing fancy here. We're just tapping in to show an indication where there's maybe branches coming out and some shading. And as we keep layering this, it's going to look more and more like a tree that has snow covering the tips of the branches. So I'm coming in with a little bit more paint. I'm not making it very fancy. This is very loose right now. And I'm going to continue that all the way down, again, just like I did with the first layer. Here I have the little bits of areas with the blue, and this is going to be a shaded area. I'm going to do one more layer on this now. I'm going to show you with the sap green and my medium brush, my size 8 brush. I wet some watercolor, put it in the pan, put a little water on the brush, and I'm just going to go over this one more time. And this time I'm going to cover it with a little bit more green and a little bit less white showing. So what I'm doing, my brush stroke is coming up. I'm just coming up with a little bits of flicks on my brush, just like that. And I'm going to go all the way down and do that again. So you can see here I've done a few layers with the green and the sap green, and each time with a little curved upward stroke with the brush. Takes a little bit more white away, but not too much, because I still want an indication of snow on the branches. And I think that we're done with this. So we're gonna let this dry now. We're gonna go back to our original wet on wet piece of paper, and we're gonna put in some snow on the ground. Here we are back with our original paper, and we're gonna do this area here. We're gonna work on this area here. Now remember, originally this was dry. So what we're going to do is going to take a little bit of water, and we're just going to run our brush over it just to wet it a little bit. And I took a light blue with the water, and I'm going to just make a diagonal strokes for a bank of snow. I'm going to brush into that, come up a little bit on it, and maybe add just a little bit more water for it to work itself in. And we'll let this dry. So this is dried now, and our tree is dried. I cut my tree size down just a little bit. I wanted it to fit in a little nicer, and I thought it was too big. You can do whatever you like with your tree. And if you have the little adhesive dots, this is the time to adhere them to your back of your tree, and then put your tree wherever you like on your painting. If not, you can just glue it on. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to show you the final step. I have my little glue dots in place, and now I'm just going to put this where I think it would look pretty. I think right there is good. Put it in place. And the final step is just to take a little bit of glue and put it on the tips of the branches, maybe a little bit in the snow, and then to put some glitter on top of that. So I'm going to do that and then come back and show you what that looks like. Here we go. I have some glistening snow and some glistening clouds and glistening tips of the branches on the trees. I've taken my paper off the board, and I always like the way the edges look when they're just a little ripped. So that's what we're doing here. We're going to go down and just very carefully just make a nice effect by ripping the side so it's not straight. We'll do that and come back. The sides are all nicely ripped, and that's it. Just left to sign it, but you can also embellish this with any kind of little appliques, little snowflakes if you wanted to put in. And I hope you enjoyed this little winter wonderland watercolor collage with me. This is Marie Caminaris signing off. I hope you all stay healthy and safe. Until next time, bye-bye.